There is something more dreadful than crimes. While crimes occur more often at night, curses can work anytime. Now someone appears to have died from curses. Can you break the curse of beef noodle soup? It looks like a usual summer Saturday. After lunch, you are running through the woods. When you pass a house, you spot something strange and stop running. The house is blocked off with crime scene tapes. Through the French windows, you see a man lie down on the couch and seem to be dead. At the same time, you feel someone is approaching you. Turning around, you are astonished at his appearance. Tall and slim, super clean white polo shirt, finely chiseled features, and a long fringe. He looks like a model. He gently smiles and says, "Hi, my name is Gideon. Nice to meet you." You find it awkward to reply the pleasure is mine near a crime scene, so you keep silent. Then he kneels down to tie his shoelaces, but it's weird because his shoelaces are not loose. "Have you just had lunch?" he asks. "What?" You are shocked because you brushed your teeth after lunch. Then he takes out binoculars to observe the house. You ask him, "Can I borrow them?" He says, "Yes, but you need to discuss the crime scene with me." "Okay." You get the binoculars and describe what you see. There is a dead body of a skinny middle-aged man, and there is nothing special about the rustic house decor. You increase the binoculars' magnification. The dead man's wide-eyed look and blue face make your hair stand on end. Then you shout, "My gosh, his forehead! There is a red pentagram on his forehead. There's one more on the floor. Is it written in blood? I've got goosebumps." You turn your focus to the coffee table near the couch. There is a paper bowl with soup, noodles, and meat in it. Beside the bowl is a paper bag. There seems to be a word on the bag, and the word is Huang, Huang. That is the back of Huang's noodle house on Main Street. Is Huang's noodle house related to his death? But why are there pentagrams on site? In the meantime, a young policeman walks towards you and says, "I think you could be a suspect. There are wet red stains on your shorts, and they could be blood stains that occur when you fought with that man. Go to the police station with me now." Gideon opens his mouth and says something that will completely change your life. "Sir, I'm afraid you've made a mistake." The policeman snorts. "Go back to your runway. Do not interfere with my duties." Gideon remains calm and says, "The red stains are ketchup stains. You can smell them." You look down. "How did you know?" Gideon replies, "I saw them when I first met you. That's why I asked you, 'Have you just had lunch?' Then I knelt down to pretend to tie my shoelaces, and the stains smelled like ketchup instead of blood." The policeman embarrassedly kneels down and proves Gideon right, but he gets salty and questions Gideon. "Why in the world did you bring binoculars to the crime scene? You may also be a suspect." Ha 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 ha. The policeman is interrupted by an older policeman. That policeman has a crew cut, a husky body, and a big smile. He gives Gideon a big hug and introduces the young policeman to Gideon. "This is Fred, a rookie on my team." "Fred, this is Gideon." Fred raises his eyebrows. "Captain, you mean he's the genius detective who's helped you a lot?" "Yes." The captain smiles. Fred shrugs his shoulders. "I thought Gideon was ugly and bald." Then Fred walks away. "Ha ha ha, you are too good looking to be a detective." The captain winks at Gideon, turns to you, and speaks in a loud voice. "Hi, my name is Tom, and now Gideon needs to go with me." Tom and Gideon walk towards the police car. You catch up with them. "I'm interested in the case. May I join you?" Gideon looks at you. "Would you like to be my assistant?" "What does your assistant need to do?" "Managing case data, running errands, and signing a non-disclosure agreement with me. The breach of agreement will cost you 10 years' salary." 10 years' salary? You're shocked by the penalty, but also confident that you won't breach the agreement, so you happily agree without knowing Gideon's true colors. David, 35 years old, a supermarket cashier. Tom gives info about the dead man and clenches his fists. We must catch the criminal and make sure justice is served. Tom enters the interrogation room, while you and Gideon observe the interrogation through a one-way mirror. Gideon not only asks you to take notes, but says he'll test your detective skills after the interrogation. You get nervous and stay focused. The first suspect is David's older brother, and he makes the following statements. It must be the curse. It must be the curse of beef noodle soup. Okay, I'll try to calm down. My name is Jack, and I am 2 years older than David. The last time I saw David alive was 11 a.m. today. He was sitting on the couch and watching TV. Then I went out to run errands at the bank on Main Street. When I arrived home at lunchtime, I saw him lie down on the couch. I called him several times, but he didn't respond. So I walked towards him, and there's a slight smell of excrement. There seems to be some excrement on his pants, but not much. Oh, don't remind me of the pentagrams. I was terrified of the pentagram on his forehead, and there's one more on the floor. Oh, what I wanted to say is he was not breathing, so I called an ambulance. The ambulance crew arrived and pronounced him dead. He died even before having finished eating the noodles. It must be the curse of beef noodle soup. Oh, you want to know who might have killed him? He's a good bargainer, and no matter what he bought, he asked for giveaways. But no one would kill a person for giveaways, right? You want to know if he had serious conflict with anyone? He had a fight with a fortune teller. I had been jobless for months and asked him to visit the fortune teller together yesterday. He never believed in those things. So when the fortune teller told me how to attract good luck, he turned his nose up. Then the fortune teller warned him to stay away from cow-related things, not to go near dairy farms, not to eat beef, not to drink milk, and not to interact with Taurians. David raised his voice. How can I tell who's Taurian, you liar? Then they fought until I dragged him away. I took him to Huang's noodle house next door to cool him down. That noodle house is his favorite restaurant on Main Street and has been open for 20 years. He had been a regular. Sometimes he ate in and sometimes he ordered delivery. He didn't like the sunshine and always sat behind the screen. The noodle house was run by Mr. and Mrs. Huang. When Mr. Huang came to take orders, David was going to order his favorite beef noodle soup again. I tried very hard to warn him about the curse and dissuade him from eating beef. In the end, he ordered pork noodle soup. But today, he ordered beef noodle soup when I was away. After Jack leaves, Tom speaks to Gideon. He looked terrified. Do you also believe that David died from curses? Gideon looks Tom in the eye and replies, A curse is only valid for those who believe in it. Then Tom interrogates the second suspect, the fortune teller. She gazes at her crystal ball and makes statements in a hoarse voice. That man was punished for having blasphemed the spirit world. No, I did not kill him. I did not need to get my prophetic hands dirty. He was punished by the spiritual power. You want to unveil the mystery of my whereabouts today? You can ask the crystal ball. You want me to speak in earthly language? Well, I live in a fortune-telling house, and I had not left the house today before I came here. The first guest visited me at 11 a.m. and left at 12:15. The second guest arrived at 12:30. While I was removing negative energy from her, you interrupted me. Oh, my clairvoyance tells me that you are suffering from bad luck. You need urgent help from me. To your surprise, when the fortune teller steps out, Tom half-jokingly asks her how to turn his luck around, and she asks Tom to find time to visit her. Then the third suspect arrives. With a band-aid on his left middle finger, Mr. Huang, the owner of Huang's noodle house, says, I started the noodle house when I was 25, and now I'm 45. Yes, I delivered the beef noodle soup to David's house at 12 p.m. As soon as I handed the soup over to him, I left and drove back to the noodle house. After the interrogation, Tom has a big smile on his face. Ha ha ha, we've got some exciting information. The report says David had taken a few bites of the beef noodle soup on the coffee table, and his DNA was found in the soup. The pentagrams were written with a ketchup bottle on his dining table. The excrement on his pants had been cleaned up, so it was not much, and there was no excrement on the couch. Besides, David hadn't been drugged. His time of death was between 11:40 and 12:10 today, and the cause of his death was... Wait! Gideon interrupts Tom and smiles at you. Now it's time for a test. I want you to deduce the cause of David's death. Was it A, the curse of beef noodle soup, B, food poisoning, or C, others? You have 10 seconds to think. What's your answer? Gideon asks you. After you utter your answer, Tom winks at you, showing you the report. The beef noodle soup was not poisonous. The cause of death was mechanical asphyxia, which means he was strangled to death. And there was no sign of food poisoning. Gideon nods gently. David's blue face indicated lower level of oxygen, and excrement on his pants indicated incontinence. These were both signs of asphyxia. Gideon turns to Tom. Please find out 3 suspects' motives for murder, validate their alibis, and collect this important evidence. He writes down some words. Pizza, fried chicken, cokes. Tom treats you to a table full of fast food and discloses more information. Regarding motives for murder, besides the fortune teller, Jack also had a motive. The house he and David lived in had been handed down by their parents. After David died, Jack has become the sole owner. As for their alibis and the CCTV footage you asked me to collect, Tom shows you a map. The fortune-telling house, Huang's noodle house, and the bank are near each other on Main Street. And David's house is on Pearl Lane. The 2 guests the fortune teller mentioned verified that she was in the fortune-telling house from 11 a.m. to David's time of death, so she couldn't strangle David. Besides, the CCTV footage shows at 11:50 a.m. today, the delivery car of Huang's noodle house was driving towards David's house. The car entered Pearl Lane at 11:58 and left the lane at 12:03. So the soup was indeed delivered to David's house around 12 p.m. As for Jack, a bank teller confirmed that he was at the bank after 11 a.m. The CCTV footage also shows Jack's car was driving towards home at 12 p.m. and entered Pearl Lane at 12:07. We estimated that he arrived home at 12:09, and our record shows he called the ambulance at 12:12. Then we arrived at his house at 12:15 and found the noodles near David's corpse had been completely mushy at 12:15. So overall speaking, their alibis have all been verified. Gideon frowns. David hadn't been drugged, so after having subdued and strangled him, the killer also had to clean his pants and draw the pentagrams. Jack arrived home at about 12:09 and called the ambulance at 12:12. He had only 3 minutes. Mr. Huang's time was even shorter. He had about 1 minute. Neither of them had enough time to finish everything. Was there any way to arrive David's house without being captured on CCTV cameras? Tom nods. The trail at the woods behind David's house had no CCTV cameras, and unfortunately, the residents at Pearl Lane, including David, enjoy walking in the woods. Gideon's face darkens. That makes things even more difficult. Tom nods again. The pentagrams also puzzle me. Why did the killer draw them? Gideon replies. Maybe the killer wanted to express some philosophy, or the killer believed pentagrams could prevent the dead from taking revenge. Of course, it could also be a staged crime scene. Tom bites his lips. We get stuck again. I seriously don't want to be the unlucky cop again, and I believe we can turn things around this time. Gideon taps Tom's shoulder. Sure. You leave the police station at midnight and walk to Gideon's super clean car. You say to Gideon, "You are exhausted. Do you want me to drive?" He sits in the driver's seat and smiles. I don't like to put my life in other people's hands. Along the way, you ask him, Why did Tom call himself the unlucky cop? Gideon replies, you'll find it out someday. You seem to be close to each other, and he trusts you. We've known each other since 11 years old, and now we are both 30. Can you share any of your interesting stories? There are too many to tell. Let's focus on the case. Please meet me at 9 a.m. tomorrow, and be ready for some special tasks. Next morning, you arrive at Gideon's office and feel awkward. His office is about 355 square feet. There are only a few pieces of furniture, but every furniture is clean and shiny. The bookshelves behind his desk are filled with crime and mystery books. His polo shirt is still super clean, but his eyelids are swollen. He takes out a long to-do list and explains your task as he drives you to Main Street. He drops you off at the bookstore and says, our budget is limited, so please pick only 2 books mostly related to the meaning of pentagrams. I have an appointment with a fortune teller about my modeling career. Give me a call when you are done, and please do not go to the fortune-telling house. Okay, you somehow feel he's hiding something, so after buying 2 books, you do not call him but walk towards the fortune-telling house. To your surprise, before you reach the fortune-telling house, you've already seen him sitting in Huang's noodle house. You can't see the seats behind the screen, but he seems to be the only guest there. Why is he in the noodle house instead? You hide in corner and observe him. Mrs. Huang brings out 2 bowls of noodle soup, and as soon as Mrs. Huang turns around, Gideon presses the button of a stopwatch behind her back. Is he measuring time? You look at your watch and it's 11:30. Then he starts eating noodles from bowl A while staring at bowl B. He sweats on the forehead, and after wiping off the sweat under the fringe, he puts his long fringe back. Even after finishing eating, he still stares at bowl B. Why is he doing that? You walk into the restaurant and smile at him. I guess I'm too hungry, so I end up here. He forces a smile. I've ordered a bowl of beef noodle soup for you, but the noodles have become partly mushy. I'll order another bowl for you. Then you start eating noodles from bowl C and notice that when noodles in bowl B have become completely mushy, he presses the button of the stopwatch again. It's 11:55, which means it takes 25 minutes for the noodles to become completely mushy. When you finish eating, Gideon says to Mr. Huang, the beef noodle soup is delicious. Do you do delivery? Yes. But will the noodles be mushy when they arrive? Don't worry, we put noodles in a separate bowl for delivery, and you can add noodles to soup afterwards. Then Gideon drives you back to his office and smiles gently. I need to read the books you bought. Please give me some privacy and take my car to a car wash. You somehow feel that he deliberately sends you away and hides his feelings behind that gentle smile. But luckily, you've browsed through the books and learned that pentagrams have magical power because 5 is a magical number. Each person has 5 fingers, 5 toes, and 5 senses, and pentagrams can be used to protect against evil. Now you have enough clues to solve the case. Who do you think the killer is? A. The fortune teller. B. Mr. Huang. C. Jack. D. Gideon. Please vote and share your opinion in the comments section below, and information on the answer video is in video description.